The 4th of October. Dear Margaret, it will not surprise you to learn that I am here, by which I mean I have arrived. I sit now at a small writing desk in the window of an inn called the Hare and Lantern, in a village called Hollowmere, and the lamp at my elbow is the first one I have lit in this room, and the ink in this pen is the first ink I have put to paper since the morning I left. The bag is still half unpacked on the bed behind me. The room smells of beeswax and rain. I think I am very tired. I don't yet know what to tell you about the village, because I have only properly looked at it from the angle of this window. And that is the angle of a man who has not slept on the same pillow for 3 nights running, and has carried more than he meant to carry. But the window will do for now. It has a wide wooden sill, set high enough that I have to stand a little when I want to see the bottom of the lane, and the glass has one of those small flaws in it, a kind of ripple, that makes the church tower across the square seem to lean slightly to the left whenever I move my head. I have moved my head a great many times in the last 10 minutes, simply to enjoy this. The lamp on this desk is the small, steady kind, with a glass chimney and a brass base, and it makes a soft round of light not much larger than the page. The light does not reach the corners of the room. The corners are full of a kind of evening dark that I had been alone with for some minutes before I noticed it was there. It is a friendly dark, I think. I cannot find another word for it. Some dark you mind being in, and some dark you do not. And this is the kind I do not mind. I promised you a letter the moment I arrived. I am keeping that promise, although I suspect the version of me writing now is a poorer correspondent than the one who made it. There are crumbs of supper still on the desk. I'll have to remember to brush those off before I post this. And the candle keeps flickering when the door downstairs is opened, which it has been twice already since I sat down, and each time I lose a sentence I had been about to write. Forgive me if this letter wanders. I think it is the kind of evening when wandering is the only honest thing to do. Let me describe what I can see before the light goes. Hollowmere. I am told the name with the local soft second syllable, like hollow, but as though the word itself is a little hesitant. Sits in a small valley between 2 hills. The village proper is laid out around a square, more of a rough oval really, with the church at one end and the inn at the other, and between them a market cross worn down to a stump no taller than my knee. The cobbles in the square are dark and uneven, and one of them, near the well, is set on its side rather than its face, sticking up like a pet's tongue. And I cannot tell whether that's a recent disturbance or some old joke that the village has chosen to live with. I can see the well clearly from here. It has a small slate roof and a bucket the color of old bread, and a stone seat around the base of it where 2 children were sitting when I arrived. They have gone now, but the bucket is still moving very slightly, which I think must be the wind, although I have not felt much of it pressing against the glass. To the right of the well, the road dips down between 2 whitewashed cottages and is lost in what I take to be the way to the river. There is a smell of wood smoke that has been in my nose since the coach put me down. Sweet and very settled, like it knows it lives here. While I was watching the well, an old man crossed the square at his own pace, going from one of the cottages towards the inn, with a walking stick that he was using gently rather than firmly. He stopped once and looked up, not at my window exactly, but in the general direction of the inn's upper floor, and I had the small, foolish thought that he was looking at me, and I half raised my hand from the desk. He did not see, of course, or if he did, he made no sign. He went on. He turned in at the inn's door. I do not know whether he is downstairs now, drinking with the other men, or sitting quietly by the fire. I would like to know what brought him out in the half-light with the stick. Probably nothing. Probably bread. Beyond the cottages, on the hill, there are sheep. They are too far off for me to count, but they make small grey punctuation marks against the dark grass, and one of them keeps moving the same short distance back and forth, as though it cannot quite decide whether to commit to being a sheep on the right side of the hedge or one on the left. I find I am very fond of it already. I have always liked any creature with apparent indecision in its bones. The church is the most striking thing in the view, although that's a low bar this evening. Striking by the standard of a village that is otherwise mostly low roofs and lamplight. The tower is squat and square, built of the same dark stone as the inn, and the bell housing at the top has a small wooden cupola painted a faded green. The roof of the nave is slate, with moss along the spine of it, and the gravestones in the yard lean every direction the wind has had a strong opinion in over the years. There is no spire. I'm told there used to be one, but it came down in a storm long enough ago that no one alive remembers it standing. Only the stories of it standing, which is a different thing. I have not yet been inside the church. I'm told there isn't a particular denomination attached to it. Mrs. Pell, the landlady downstairs, used the phrase, "no decided opinion," when I asked, which I thought was very fine. She said that as far as anyone knows, the church has been there longer than any of the various people who would have liked to claim it. And so it goes on being a church without saying what kind, and the village goes on attending it when it feels like attending. And the result is that no one has fought about it in living memory. I cannot decide, Margaret, whether that is a kind of grace or a kind of laziness. Perhaps it is both. The best things, in my experience, usually are. The light at this time of day is the strangest thing about the view, and I keep going back to it. I'm sitting on the west side of the inn, so I'm looking roughly east as I write, and the sun is behind me and dropping fast. The square ought, by my reckoning, to be in shadow by now. The inn casts a long shadow across the cobbles, but the church tower is still catching a wedge of late, butter-coloured light on its western face, and that wedge of light has not moved in the half hour since I sat down. I've been watching for it to slide. It has not slid. I'm sure there's a reason. Some trick of the hills, the way they slope to the south. But I confess I am taken with the idea that the light here is simply slower to leave than the light at home. Slower to commit to going. I think I understand the impulse. I should tell you about the journey, although in honesty I've already begun to forget most of it. The first day was easy enough. The train as far as Wenley, where I had the misfortune of an hour's wait on a platform with no roof and a wind that had clearly seen things. I bought a meat pie from a small stand near the station that turned out to be neither meat nor pie in any sense you would recognize, and I ate it anyway because the alternative was looking at my watch. From Wenley I took the post coach. I had been told it would be a short ride, 2 hours perhaps, but the coachman warned me, curiously, that the road takes longer than it seems. I did not understand him at the time. I thought he meant the road is bad, potholes, ruts, a hill that does for the horses. The road was none of those things. It was a very pleasant road, well kept, the verges full of late asters, and we passed 2 villages I have already forgotten the names of, and a stretch of woodland where the trees met overhead, and the coachman whistled the same fragment of a tune over and over without ever finishing it, none of which made the road take longer than it seemed. And yet it did, Margaret. It did. We set off at 2 and we arrived at 6, and the man swore by his pocket watch that the watch had not slept, and there was nothing in the journey itself, no stop, no incident, no delay, that I can point at and say there is where the time went. I have decided not to think about it too closely. I am too tired. And besides, I am not sure I want to know. The light was lovely the whole way. The trees were lovely. The coachman was a kind, slow-spoken man with a face like a clay pot that had been left out to dry. And his only conversation with me, apart from the warning about the road, was to point at a flock of geese going overhead and say, "Going south, probably right to do so." I had no answer to that. I'm not at all sure I'm going south, in any direction that matters. There was a stretch of the road, perhaps half an hour after we passed the second of the small villages I no longer remember, when I almost asked the coachman to stop. The light had gone strange, or rather the road had, and I was suddenly very aware that I had taken a coach to a village I had only seen the name of, and that there was no one waiting for me at the other end except a stranger with an apron and a key on a brass ring. I did not ask him to stop. I sat on my hands and I watched the verges go past. I do not know what would have happened if I had asked him to stop. Probably he would have stopped, and I would have got out, and I would have sat in the verge until the next coach came, and then I would have gone home, and then I would have written a different letter. I think about that other letter sometimes. I do not think I would have known how to write it. The first sight of Hollowmere came at a turning in the road I would not have known to expect. The trees opened, and there was a small wooden sign with the name carved on it, and the lettering on the sign had been repainted recently and not very straight, so the letter H tips back a little, as though the village itself is unsure whether to introduce itself fully or wait until you've decided to stay. And then the road dropped, and there was the valley, and there were the cottages, and the wood smoke smell came up to meet the coach as if it had been keeping a place for us. I cannot pretend I was not moved. You know I am no traveller, but I was moved. Mrs. Pell was waiting at the door of the inn. I think she waits at the door whenever the coach is due, and she took me in with the kind of mild, brisk affection a person uses when they're glad you've come, but don't yet know whether you'll be glad you did. She gave me a room on the upper floor with a small writing desk at the window, and a wash basin painted with a pattern of cornflowers, and a wardrobe with one door that doesn't quite shut, and she said supper would be in an hour, and that I was not to apologize for being tired. I had been on the point of apologizing. She got there first.
I want to tell you more about Mrs. Pell, because she is the first person I've spoken to here at any length, and because I think she will become someone in this letter, and many of the ones I expect to write after it. She is, I would guess, in her late 50s, though she has the kind of face it is hard to put a number on. Her hair is grey and braided into a single rope that runs down her back, and she has a comfortable build, and she wears an apron over a dark dress, and the apron has flour on it most of the time, although I have not yet seen her bake anything. The flour is a habit, I think, not a residue. She speaks slowly, but not because she's slow. It's the kind of slow that comes from a person who is used to other people interrupting, and has therefore learned to give them no purchase. Each sentence comes out at her pace and is finished before the next one is allowed to begin. I noticed this even in the first 5 minutes. She asked me what name to put in her book, and I said, "Edwin," and she said, "Edwin." And then she waited, kindly, for me to give the second name, and when I didn't, she simply wrote, "Edwin," alone, and turned the book back round to me as if she had been planning to do that all along. I have not yet decided how I feel about that. I had not realized, until I stood at her counter with the pen in my hand, that I had not made up my mind whether to give my full name here. Margaret, you know I never thought of myself as a man with much to hide, and I still don't think I am, exactly. But there was something about the way the room held its breath when she asked. The inn was quiet, the fire was popping, and I thought, I do not have to tell her. I thought, she is not asking me to tell her. And I gave her Edwin, and that was enough. She did not raise an eyebrow. She did not ask again. She made a small mark in her book next to my name and slid a key towards me on a brass ring and told me where the stairs were. When I came down for supper, she sat with me for a little while at the long table by the fire. There were 2 other guests, a man with a beard reading a small book, and a young woman knitting something blue that I think will eventually be a hat. And Mrs. Pell brought me bread and butter and a bowl of barley soup with carrots and a sprig of something green I did not recognize. She asked while I ate what brought me to Hollowmere, and I told her, what I have not yet told you, Margaret, although I will get to it before this letter is done, that I had needed quiet. That was all I said. She looked at me a long moment over the rim of her own cup, and she nodded, and she said, "Well, you have come to the right place for it. We make a great deal of quiet here. It's one of the things we have most of." That was the only question. She did not ask where I had come from, or what I did for a living, or whether I had family expecting me, or how long I planned to stay. She asked me if I would like more bread, which I did, and she fetched it. And then she sat with me again until I had finished. And then she said goodnight and went into the back room. And I came up here to begin this letter. I tell you, Margaret, I have not been spoken to with so little examination in I cannot say how long. It is a peculiar relief. It is also slightly disconcerting. The way a sudden absence of noise is disconcerting when you have been living for years next to a loom or a river and didn't know it until it stopped. I should write what I have been working around for the last 2 pages. You asked me, in your last letter, the one I read on the morning of the train, sitting on the bench by the platform, with the wind doing its work on the corners of the paper. You asked me why. Not where, not for how long. Why? And I told you in my reply that I would write you properly once I was settled, and that I would try to answer. I am writing now, although I am not certain settled is the word for what I am. But I want to try. I do not have a single reason, Margaret. I have a tiredness. I know that's a poor thing to offer you after all this trouble. A tiredness, dressed up in a coach and a coat and 3 nights of bad sleep. But I cannot find anything more honest under it. I was tired in a way that ordinary rest had stopped touching. I was tired with my eyes open. I was tired through the meal at supper, and through the work at my desk, and through the walks on Sunday afternoons. I was tired in the way a kettle goes on whistling after it has been taken off the fire, because the metal does not yet know that the heat is gone. I had been carrying something for a long time, and I had stopped being sure what it was, only that I was carrying it, and that I was going to set it down on the floor in the middle of a room one day and not pick it up again, and that I did not want to do that anywhere it would be witnessed. So I came here. I did not pick Hollowmere for any particular reason that would satisfy you, or me, or our father. I picked it because I had heard the name once, years ago, in a way I cannot now place, because the post office at home had a card pinned to its board offering a room for rent at a low price in a village by that name, and because the train timetable agreed to take me there with only one change. I admit, that is not a reason. It is a sequence of small concessions, but Margaret, the small concessions are what I have been able to manage. The grand decisions have been beyond me for some months. And here, Margaret, I have to stop. I've just looked over at the wash basin again, the cornflower basin, I mean, and the cornflowers stopped me where I sat. I had been writing about Mrs. Pell, and the question, and the small concessions, and then the cornflowers caught at me.
I have not been to your garden in a very long time. I do not say that to make either of us feel anything about it. I only say it because I sat there with the pen poised, and instead of writing, I was kneeling on the path beside you, and the smell of damp earth was in my nose, and the morning had not quite warmed yet. It was a spring, 3 years ago, perhaps 4. I cannot now place it exactly, only that the trees behind your house were still in that early green that has not yet decided to be summer green. You had asked me to come on a Saturday and help you put in the seeds for the cornflowers, although I think we both knew you did not need help. You had told me what to do and given me a little envelope of seeds and shown me the row you had already made along the stones. And then you had wandered away to do something with the rhubarb, and I had been left to my own devices, and I had done it wrong. Margaret, you must remember this. You came back from the rhubarb and you looked at my row and you said, "Edwin," in that particular way you have of saying my name when you are about to be kind about a thing I have done badly. And you crouched down beside me and you started over with infinite patience and no comment. And you did the row the way it was meant to be done. I sat back on my heels and watched you. I think I cried a little, very privately when you were not looking. I could not have told you why. After the seeds, you brought out a small enamel cup of tea for each of us, and we sat on the wooden bench you keep by the back wall. The bench is older than either of us. It was Father's grandmother's bench, which I think you have always insisted on remembering, even though no one has ever asked you to remember. And we drank the tea, and you talked about which plants you were watching and which ones you had given up on, and which ones surprised you every year by coming back. You named them all. Some I knew, some I had never heard of. You said the names with a particular fondness that I do not have words for, as though the plants had been listening for their names and were pleased when you said them. I remember the angelica. I remember you said the angelica had been there since you moved into the house, and you suspected the woman before you had planted it, and you had never had the heart to move it. I do not know why this stays with me. It was such a small thing. At some point in the middle of your talking, I realized I had been only half listening. You had moved from the angelica to something else. I think it was a flower I did not know, and I had drifted somewhere else, somewhere inside my own head, and I had missed a sentence or two. I came back into the present, and I felt the small shame of having drifted, and I waited for a polite place to admit it. There wasn't one. You went on talking. The light came through the trees in pieces. The cup in my hand was warm. I think I decided that it did not matter that I had drifted, because I was sitting with you, and the drifting had been a kind of being with you also. I told myself I would remember the angelica, since I had missed whatever came next. I have remembered the angelica. I should have visited again before now. I told myself, sitting on that bench, that I would come again before the cornflowers bloomed. I did not. I came once more later, briefly, when the cornflowers were already brown at the stems, and then I did not come again. I'm sorry, Margaret. I'm not asking your forgiveness, because I know you do not require an apology for that kind of absence. You have always been more generous about my absences than I have been about my own. But I am sorry. I am also aware, as I write this, that the cornflowers in the painted basin in this room are themselves a kind of message. I do not believe in messages. I will not pretend that the basin was put here for my sake, but it is here, and here I am. The lamp on this desk has guttered a little while I have been writing this. I had not noticed. The flame is back now. I think I've been sitting still for some long minutes,
with the pen above the page, and the room around me has cooled. I can hear something downstairs. Mrs. Pell, perhaps, moving a chair. I am still here. I am in a small upstairs room of an inn called the Hare and Lantern in a village called
Hollowmere, and you are in your house with your garden, presumably with the cornflowers either coming up or already coming up, and the angelica still there. I am going to keep writing, because if I stop now, I will not start again tonight, and there is more I wanted to say. I am not in trouble. I want you to know that. And please pass it on to anyone who asks, though I think only you will ask. I have not made an enemy. I have not been turned out. I am not unwell, except in the way I have just described, which is more of a worn rope than a snapped one. I have brought enough money to keep me here for the winter, at least. I am told there is small work in the village that a stranger can take up if he wants. Letter writing for the older people. A hand to the man who keeps the post office, and a clerk's eye for the inn's books, if Mrs. Pell decides she trusts me, which she may not, and I would not blame her. I do not need money for some months yet, and so I do not have to decide today. What I want, and Margaret, please don't laugh, is to be in a place where the day is not asking me a question every hour. I have spent so many years being asked questions every hour. I want a day that lets me sit in a chair and watch the wedge of light on a church tower, and not feel as though I am stealing the time from somewhere it was owed. I think Hollowmere may be that place. I cannot be sure yet. I have been here 4 hours. If it is not, if the quiet here turns out to be a different sort of noise, I will tell you. I will come back. I would rather come back to you than to anyone, you know that. But I have a feeling, lit up in me very softly the way the lamp on this desk is lit up softly, that I'm going to be here a while. Don't worry. Write to me. I have given the post office the inn's direction, and they have promised that letters will find me. Tell me about the garden, about the boys, about the cat with the bent ear, about anything at all. I would like to know that the world I left is still moving along as it was. Let me describe the room, since I am sitting in it, and since you will picture me wrong if I don't. It is small, but not cramped. The ceiling slopes on the window side because we are under the eaves, and there is a beam running across at about the height of my forehead, which I have already misjudged once, when I came in with my hat still on. There is a bed against the inner wall, made up with 2 grey blankets and a coverlet of a quilted pattern, with green and rust-coloured squares, and a single pillow that I have hopes for. The bed is narrower than I'm used to. I think it will be friendlier for it. The writing desk is by the window. I have told you that already, and will probably tell you again, because I'm pleased with it. It is small and dark and very heavy. The wood scratched in places to bare grain, with a square of green baize set into the top that has been wiped clean for me. There is a single drawer with a brass handle, which I have already opened to look inside, and the drawer contains nothing but a pencil stub, a hairpin, and a folded scrap of paper with the word Tuesday written on it in pencil, and then crossed through. I do not know who wrote it, or why. I'm going to leave it where it is. It seems to belong here. On the wall above the desk, there is a small framed picture of a hare. Not a particularly good picture. A kind of crude lithograph, the lines too thick, the hare's eye placed too high in its skull, but a kindly picture all the same. The hare is sitting upright on its haunches and looking off to the left of the frame with one ear cocked.
as though it has just heard something it intends to consider quite carefully before reacting. I find I rather like the hare. I think it must be one of the inns, given the inn's name, and I'd guess there's a lantern somewhere too, in a frame, perhaps in another room. I shall keep an eye out. The wash basin is on a small stand by the wardrobe, and I have already mentioned the cornflowers painted around its rim. The water in the jug is cold and very clear. I tested it with a finger, and the towel beside it is folded and smells very faintly of lavender, which I suspect is Mrs. Pell's doing. The wardrobe, as I said, has one door that does not properly shut, but I have hung my coat in it, and my second shirt and my better trousers, and the wardrobe seems content to keep them, and I will not ask more of it than that. There is a rag rug on the floor, woven in browns and faded reds, and there is a small fireplace which I have not yet lit, although there is wood ready in a basket and a tinderbox on the mantel. I think I will leave the fire for tomorrow. It feels presumptuous to ask the room for a fire on the first night. The room is being kind enough. I don't want to lean on it. I'm going to sleep with the window cracked open a little, so I can hear whatever sounds the village makes at night. I want to know what they are. I want to know whether the church bell rings the hours, whether the wind comes up from the river, whether the sheep on the hill have anything to say about anything.
Let me go back to supper, because I left a few things out. The public room, the room downstairs that you walk into from the square, is low and wide, with a fire at one end and the bar at the other, and a long table in the middle that's evidently for guests, and a smaller round table by the window for whoever wanders in from the village. There were 5 or 6 men at the round table when I came down, ordinary-looking men, 2 with pipes, 1 with a dog at his feet that thumped its tail against the floor whenever any of them laughed. They glanced at me when I came in, the small, polite glance of men who already know each other and have noticed a stranger, and then they went back to their conversation, which seemed to be about a fence or a wall, or possibly the difference between the two. The bearded man with the book sat at one end of the long table, and the woman with the knitting sat at the other, and Mrs. Pell put me in the middle with the soup, which I thought was rather diplomatic of her. The fire was throwing a good heat. There was a low oil lamp on the table, with a glass chimney that needed cleaning at the top. The bread was warm and dense and a little sour, the way I like bread to be, and the butter was so yellow it looked dyed, although Mrs. Pell mentioned in passing that it had come up from a farm a mile out, and that the cow was called Daisy. I do not know why she told me the cow's name, but I am glad to know it. Daisy, Margaret. We are eating Daisy's butter. The bearded man, his name, I believe, is Hartle, although I caught it only obliquely when Mrs. Pell spoke past me to him, looked up from his book once or twice and gave me a kind nod, and then went back to reading. I caught a glimpse of the title, and the lettering looked like a foreign alphabet, although it could have been my tiredness. The young woman with the knitting did not look up at all, only smiled into her work when I said good evening. She is perhaps 25. She has a thin, watchful face and very calm hands. Mrs. Pell, in passing the soup, called her by the name Anwen and said something to her about a child, and the young woman answered without looking up that the child was much better, thank you, and asleep finally. I did not ask what child. I do not yet know whose child it is. I felt it was not yet mine to know. The soup was excellent, barley and carrot, with the slightest sweetness to it, and the green sprig of something I have already mentioned, which Mrs. Pell told me was sweet maudlin, a herb I have never come across in any other kitchen, and which she said grew along the south wall of the church of all places. I asked whether it was permitted to pick herbs from the churchyard, and she said yes, but only on Tuesdays, and I waited for her to laugh, and she did not. And so I added the rule to my growing list of rules I will need to keep in this village if I am going to be a good guest of it.
After the soup, there was a small portion of a kind of pie, which Mrs. Pell told me had mutton and something else in it. She used a word I didn't catch over the noise of the fire, and which was honestly one of the best things I've eaten in a year. The crust was thick and a little crooked. The filling was rich. I ate every bite and a second helping. I will be very embarrassed in the morning, having taken 2 helpings on my first night. But I was past being able to refuse. I think Mrs. Pell knew. She gave me an apple for after, with a small knife to peel it with, and I sat by the fire with the apple and the knife, and made what I think was my first proper exhale of the day, perhaps of the week, perhaps of a good deal longer than that. While I sat with the apple, one of the village men at the round table got up and went to the bar and ordered another round of beer for his friends, 5 glasses, which he carried back 2 at a time, and on his way he stopped at the long table to say good evening to me. He had a soft accent I could not place, and a face like a kindly potato, with 2 very blue eyes set in it. He said, "Welcome to Hollowmere, sir." And I said, "Thank you." And he said, "You'll do well to wear stout boots tomorrow if you plan to walk out. The path by the river is soft this week." And then he tipped his cap and went back to his friends. The dog from the round table got up at some point, while I was still sitting with the apple, and came over to me. It did not ask anything. It came over, sat down at my feet, and put its chin on the rung of my chair. It was the kind of mid-sized brown dog whose breed has been a long argument settled by no one. Its eyes were closed almost the whole time it was beside me, although every now and then they would open a little and look up at me in a placid way, as if to confirm that I was still there. I let my hand find its head. The fur was soft and warm and slightly dusty. I did not stop to wonder what its name was. I sat there with my hand on the dog's head, and the apple half peeled in my other hand, and the fire making its small noises in the hearth, and I was as nearly happy as I have been since I cannot say when. After a while, one of the men at the round table whistled softly, without looking, and the dog opened its eyes properly, and stood, and went back to him. It did not look back at me. I do not think it needed to. And I felt, Margaret, the very particular small warmth of having been spoken to without being interrogated. I have been interrogated a great deal lately. I had not realized how much of my energy went into that.
I left supper at about 8, I think. Although I could not tell you for sure because there is no clock in my room, and Mrs. Pell hasn't yet pointed me to one. I came up here to write to you, but about an hour into the writing I realized, sitting here with the lamp burning and the village darkening through the window, that I had not yet seen the post office, and that I would need to know where it was if I was going to send this letter at all, and that the walk would do me good. So I put my coat back on, and I went out. The square at dusk is a different square. The lamps in the inn windows had been lit, and there were 2 oil lamps burning on iron brackets at either end of the church, and a single tall lamp on a post by the well, and the cobbles caught the light very softly in patches. There were perhaps 4 or 5 people about, a woman crossing with a covered basket, 2 children running for the sake of it, the man with the dog from the inn making his way home. The dog gave me a long, considering look as it went past, the way dogs sometimes do when they're forming an opinion of you to share with the family later. And then it went on at the man's heel. Mrs. Pell had told me the post office was on the lane just east of the church. The second door past the gate, painted blue. You can't miss it. And I followed her directions, and the post office was indeed on that lane, and was indeed painted blue, and I would have had a hard time missing it. The door was closed and the window was dark, of course. This was no hour for posting, and I had not expected to find it open. But I wanted to see it. I wanted to know where the letter would begin its journey. The post office is a small, flat-fronted building with a sign hung from an iron arm reading "Post" in painted block letters, and below the sign a board with 2 notices pinned to it, one announcing a service at the church, the other offering a goat for sale or trade. I read both notices twice. Margaret, I have not had occasion to read a notice for a goat in many years, and it pleased me out of all proportion to the importance of the goat.
Beyond the post office, the lane goes on a little way, and then it joins a wider road. I'm told it leads down to the river, and the lamps stop, and I did not go further. I stood at the corner for a while. The light from the church lamps was thin and warm. I could hear the river itself in the distance, or thought I could. You know how easy it is to imagine a river when you are told one is near. The air was cool and damp and smelled of cut hay from somewhere I could not place. A small bird made a soft fussing noise in a hedge. The sky was a clear, deep blue with the first stars in it, and the moon was a thin sickle just clear of the eastern hill. And I have to tell you, although I cannot promise it isn't simply the tiredness speaking, that I felt, in that moment, more rested than I have felt in many months. I stayed at the corner longer than I had meant to. I was not waiting for anything, there was nothing to wait for, but I was reluctant to turn back. The night had not quite fully fallen. The road past the lamps went down into a deeper grey, and I could see, very faintly, what I think was a single lamp some distance further along, in what I now believe must be the cottage of someone who lives between the village and the river. I cannot be sure of this. It might have been a star low on the horizon that I was reading as a lamp because I wanted there to be a lamp. Either way, the small, far light pleased me. I stood with my hands in my coat pockets, and the air came up cool from the unseen river, and the small bird in the hedge made its small noise again. And then a different sound made it, and then went quiet. And I realized, Margaret, that I was waiting in the dark and listening for things to happen on their own, which is something I have not done in a very long time. On the way back across the square, I passed a small shop that I had not noticed earlier, although it must have been there all along. It is set back a step from the others, with a green door and a window full of jars and dried things hanging from the lintel. Bunches of herbs, I think, and small bundles of what might have been roots, and a row of glass bottles holding what looked like coloured water. There was a sign in the window that I could not read in the half-light. I will go past in daylight tomorrow and see what it is. I have a suspicion already, but I'll keep it to myself and let the shop tell me at its own pace. When I came back into the inn, Mrs. Pell was wiping down the long table. She looked up and said, "You found the post?" I said I had. She said, "It opens at 9. Mr. Thresher is the postmaster. He's a slow man, but a fair one. You'll like him." I said I was sure I would, and I came up here. And that is where you find me now. The desk, the window, the lamp, the cooling tea. Mrs. Pell brought me up a cup without my asking half an hour ago. And a letter. This letter, almost done. It is fully dark now, although the lamps in the square are still burning, and the church on the far side is lit in a different way I cannot quite see. Perhaps by a single candle in a porch, perhaps by something else. I'm going to stop writing in a few minutes. I'm going to wash my face in the cornflower basin and put on my nightshirt and lie down in the narrow bed and let the wardrobe stand its watch with its one slightly open door. And I'm going to listen to whatever Hollowmere has to say to itself tonight. and I'm going to sleep. Before I do, though, I want to tell you one small thing more. I went to close the window a few minutes ago because the air had become cold, and I caught a thread of music coming from somewhere in the village, very faint, very far. A fiddle, I think, a slow tune. I could not make out the melody, only that it was one of those tunes that bends down a little at the end of each phrase, like a person finishing a sentence with a small, private smile. It is gone now. I cannot hear it any longer. I do not know whose it was. It made me think, and I will tell you this, although I think it will not surprise you, of the way music in our house always came from somewhere I was not. Father in his study with a piece of paper. You at the window humming without realizing. The neighbor through the wall on her piano on a Tuesday evening. I never went looking for any of it. It was always already happening, somewhere I was not. And I was always already deciding to leave it alone, to let whoever was making it have it for themselves. The fiddle in Hollowmere tonight was the same. I did not get up to look out the window. I let it stay where it was. I think that has been my whole relationship with music. I do not regret it. I'm only noticing it tonight. But I wanted to mark it down because, as I said to you in my last letter, if you remember, I'm trying to be a person who notices things again. The fiddle is the first thing I have noticed of my own accord since I got off the coach. I am counting it. I will write again at the end of the week, when I have walked the village properly and met a few more of the people in it. I expect by then I will have at least 3 or 4 characters to introduce you to, and a better sense of the shape of the days here, and perhaps some idea of how I am going to spend mine. For now, only this. I am here. I am safe. I am tired in a way I am beginning to think might actually heal. And I love you, Margaret. Give my love to everyone. Tell them I will write when I can.
Sleep well, my dear. Sleep better than I have been sleeping, until I catch you up. Yours, with great affection, and a slightly sore writing hand, Edwin. P.S. A small thing, and then I'll truly stop. I asked Mrs. Pell when she brought up the tea what time the church bell rings the hours. She gave me a long look, the same long look she gave me at the counter when I didn't add my second name, and she said, "It used to. It stopped some years ago. We keep the time ourselves now." I asked her how the village keeps the time, and she said, "We agree on it." I waited for more, and there was no more. She wished me good night and went back down. I do not know what she meant, Margaret. I'm not sure she does either, in any way she could explain. But I find I am curious. I will tell you what I find out. E